Imagine for a moment a huge, inexplicable, and terrifying scar, like a wound on the body of our planet. Not just a small scratch or crater, but a real fracture that looks as if it was created by relentless natural forces. This fracture is so unusual that it seems alive. It grows, breathes, and emits sounds resembling a dull, dreadful groan of a dying giant. Near Yakutia, local hunters and taiga residents keep their distance, trying to stay as far away as possible. They believe it is a gateway to the underground world, a realm of darkness and ancient secrets. These legends and tales have been passed down through generations, claiming that at night, a roar and a terrible crackling can be heard from there, as if bones of long-extinct creatures, ancient monsters no one has seen, are breaking inside the earth. This is not the result of a meteorite impact, nor a volcanic eruption, nor a man-made creation. It is a giant abyss, scientifically known as Batagai. It appeared quite recently, but has already reached about 1.5 kilometers in length and over 100 meters in depth. And the most frightening part is that this fracture does not stop. It continues to grow. It is like a hungry beast devouring everything around, an ancient taiga that has grown here for centuries. This place resembles a living primitive deity, awakened from a long sleep and ravenously consuming everything in its path. Scientists who dared to descend into its icy, dark depths were stunned by what they saw. They found themselves in a world where the walls of this enormous fracture are not just earth and stone. On the contrary, it is a portal in time and space, opened into our world. In layers of permafrost, hundreds of thousands of years old, incredible discoveries have been made. Perfectly preserved mammoth, cave lion, ancient bison mummies, and even entire forests that grew here 200 or perhaps 600,000 years ago. These ancient remains are an invaluable treasure for science, allowing us to look into the past and understand what the world and its inhabitants looked like many centuries ago. However, at the same time, this place is a ticking climate bomb. It holds a threat. If these ancient layers begin to thaw, a vast amount of greenhouse gases will be released into the atmosphere, potentially accelerating climate change. And not only that, living creatures frozen in icy embraces of time may awaken and become dangerous once again. Before we proceed to a more detailed description, I would like to ask for a small favor. Your support is not only attention, but also an important contribution to the development of this story. After all, understanding the causes and consequences of this giant fracture helps reveal its true meaning. And to understand why this crack in the Yakut taiga evokes such horror and superstitious fears, we need to look at what it is compared to. Part 2 of 11. Siberia is not just a vast territory, it is a gigantic icy sarcophagus hidden beneath frozen earth. Every part of it conceals secrets that could serve as the basis for terrifying and captivating stories worthy of Hollywood. Let's take a look at 9 more astonishing discoveries and mysteries of this harsh land, only to return at the end to the main theme: the gates to the underworld and their frightening secrets. We begin with a story that took place further along the Siberian border, in the northern Urals. Despite its formal connection to the border, this story, in its spirit and level of unexplained horror, has become the quintessence of all the secrets of this mysterious and brutal region. It happened in February 1959. A group of 9 experienced tourists, enthusiasts of ski expeditions, set out into the wilderness. What happens if you come face to face with this mysterious place? Around the tent, left in the snow, clear tracks are visible, leading downhill. These tracks belong to people who were barefoot, wearing only socks, and walking through the snow, leaving a chain of footprints behind. All their personal gear, warm jackets, pants, food supplies, axes, and a small flask of alcohol, remained inside the tent. The first bodies discovered nearby were lying under a massive cedar tree, about 1.5 kilometers from the campsite. They were undressed to their underwear, which in such cold weather indicates intense panic and haste. Nearby, remnants of a small fire, partially burned branches, and embers could be seen. Judging by the broken branches hanging from the treetops at heights of up to 5 meters, it can be assumed that these people, in a panic, climbed the tree in an attempt to escape. The official version of the tragedy states that hypothermia was the cause of death. However, this explanation seems too simplistic to account for the complexity of what happened. Rescuers found 3 more people, including Dyatlov himself, their bodies lying between the cedar and the tent. They were discovered in positions suggesting they had tried to crawl back toward the shelter, to the place where they could escape the cold. But it was only in May, after the snow melted and the ground was exposed, that 4 more bodies were found at the scene, and the official version of hypothermia as the cause of death suddenly began to crumble. These bodies were discovered beneath a layer of snow up to 4 meters thick, and a question immediately arises: how could this happen? The bodies of Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov showed numerous rib fractures, severe enough that forensic experts compared them to injuries caused by a car. Such were the force of these damages. Nikolai Thibault Brignol had a skull fracture, which in itself indicates a strong impact. But the most astonishing thing was that no external injuries, bruises, or wounds were found on the bodies of the other victims. Their bones were broken as if they had been subjected to some powerful shockwave, unseen under normal circumstances. And perhaps the most horrifying fact was that Lyudmila Dubinina was missing her tongue and part of her larynx. What could have caused such injuries? Some suggest it might have been the result of an avalanche. However, the tent and belongings remained in place, with no signs of being swept away or buried under snow. Others speculate it was an attack by escaped prisoners, but then something would have been stolen or damaged. Yet nothing of the sort was found. There are theories about a wild animal attack, but there were no bites, signs of struggle, or injuries typical of predators on the bodies. The local Mansi residents, who themselves hunt and lead peaceful lives, feared this place and avoided it. Ultimately, the investigation reached a dead end. All evidence pointed to the tourists' deaths being caused by some extraordinary natural force or phenomenon they could not overcome. This phrase, a natural force, proved too vague and gave rise to numerous different theories. Some believed it was a test of secret weaponry, others thought the tourists encountered a yeti, and some hypothesized contact with extraterrestrials. Certain researchers noted the unusual orange tint of the victim's skin and the increased radiation levels on their clothing, adding to the mystery. Why did 9 healthy, well-prepared, and experienced people run out into the cold in terror, naked, and accept a martyr's death? The answer to this riddle remains one of the darkest and most unexplained phenomena of the 20th century. In ancient times, when humans lacked modern knowledge and technology, some hunters, stumbling upon mysterious objects by chance, decided to use them as temporary shelters from the weather. These objects looked like unusual kettles or depressions in the ground, and to those primitive adventurers, they simply seemed like convenient places to hide from the storm. However, over time, these hunters noticed a disturbing pattern. Anyone who spent at least one night near such a kettle began to experience severe ailments. They started losing hair, developing painful ulcers, and eventually, many died from a mysterious, invisible illness that seemed inexplicable for those times. This terrible secret, hidden behind these strange formations, gave rise to numerous legends and rumors. According to folktales, the land around these objects is dead and barren. No grass or bushes grow there, and animals avoid them, staying far away. The first serious mentions of such anomalies appeared in historical sources as early as the 10th century, when the records of an explorer named Richard Maka documented the first accounts of unusual natural phenomena resembling mysterious kettles. During the Soviet era, resourceful geologists and researchers also attempted to find these objects. Some expeditions arduously traversed impassable swamps in search of these strange formations. However, their reports were either classified for various reasons or expeditions returned empty-handed, citing impassable swamps and dense thickets in those areas. This situation gave rise to numerous theories and speculations. Enthusiasts and ufology supporters proposed the most daring versions. Some believed that these cauldrons were remnants of a giant alien spaceship that had crashed many thousands of years ago. Others suggested that they were remains of an ancient defensive system created by a mysterious civilization to protect the planet from an impending danger, meteor showers or asteroids. According to them, this system could automatically destroy dangerous cosmic bodies by diverting their course or destroying them upon approach. Over time, however, such mechanisms or systems began to break down. Their components disappeared, sank underground, and residual radiation continued to harm all living things in the vicinity. Skeptics, in turn, insisted that all these stories were merely fantasies, strange geological formations called bulgunyak, or simply myths invented by peoples to explain inexplicable phenomena. Yet a question remains: where did such precise and similar descriptions of these objects originate in the folklore of peoples living in completely different parts of the world? Are these legends merely fiction or coincidental? In 2000, Czech researcher Ivan Matskerli organized an expedition to the places where, according to legends and old maps, the cauldrons should be located. He did not find the mysterious formations themselves. Instead, he stumbled upon astonishing, perfectly round lakes and discovered strong magnetic anomalies. These lakes had strange shapes and arrangements, and the magnetic fields in these areas were so intense that they could influence the operation of instruments. These findings only heightened interest in the mysterious site. The Valley of Death, so this place is called, keeps its secrets, and to this day, the mysterious cauldrons remain one of the most eerie and captivating anomalies in Siberia. This story is not about monsters or aliens. It is about people. Yet it seems so incredible that many consider it a fabrication. In the distant 70s, Soviet geologists flying in a helicopter over the remote Sayan taiga in Caucasia noticed something strange from the air. A small patch of land, processed by the Likov family, father, mother, and their children, Dmitry and Agafya, who from an early age showed extraordinary curiosity about the world around them. They examined objects with genuine interest, which seemed foreign and mysterious to them, and did not show any desire to try common treats, bread, sugar, or canned food. For them, these things were unknown and, in their father's opinion, even sinful. He firmly believed that contact with the outside world, with its temptations and artificial goods, could harm their souls and disturb their spiritual purity. Because of this, the Likov family completely avoided any interaction with external civilization. In 1981, after a long and painful struggle with a viral infection to which they had no immunity, and due to general physical exhaustion, their 3 children, Savin, Dmitry, and Natalia, never saw the light of day. All of them died within a short period, leaving behind only memories of past days. 7 years later, in 1988, their father, Karp Likov, passed away, a man who dedicated his entire life to preserving the traditional way of life and faith of his ancestors. Only their youngest daughter, Agafya, remained alive. Her fate took a special path. She was repeatedly offered to move to a settlement, to live among other people, start a new life, and have the opportunity to study, work, and make friends. But she rejected all these offers. Born deep in the Siberian taiga, amidst untouched nature and wild beauty, she decided to stay there forever. For Agafya, it was not just a choice, but the will of fate. She felt that it was in this place she was destined to spend her days. Today, she remains the last representative of the Likov family, a living symbol of a bygone era, a witness to times when humans lived in complete harmony with nature, without striving for civilization and its benefits. This woman is the only one who consciously chose a life away from modern cities and settlements, preserving in her heart the faith of her ancestors and her traditional way of life, despite all hardships and loneliness. She is a living reminder of how our ancestors lived, and that in this harsh and untamed Siberian nature, one could find not only trials, but also true peace, harmony, and spiritual purity. In Irkutsk region, on a remote slope of one of the mountains, there is an unusual object that causes bewilderment and awe among those who learn about it. This structure looks as if it has come straight from the pages of a science fiction film or novel. A tall, giant cone made of shattered limestone blocks rises about 15 stories high. Its shape is almost perfectly round, with a flat, level summit and a small depression in the center, giving it the resemblance of a massive eagle's nest ready to receive its chicks. The local Yakuts have long called it the nest of the fire eagle, and many mystical and dark legends are associated with this place. It is believed that this site is a curse that brings death and misfortune. Animals, when near it, avoid it, and people approaching it begin to feel an inexplicable anxiety, experiencing strange malaise. Some devices and equipment even fail, as if nature itself is trying to protect from this place. The first to discover this mysterious object was the well-known geologist Vadim Kolpakov in the distant year 1949, and his find posed a mystery for the scientific community. The cone does not resemble typical natural formations such as volcanoes. There are no signs of lava or ash around it, no craters or traces of an eruption nearby. Moreover, the closest active volcano is thousands of kilometers away, and this object seems to have grown out of the ground rather than formed as a result of an eruption. Our lands are a giant natural freezer, an enormous cryogenic storage of planetary scale, where for hundreds of thousands of years, not only the remains of ancient animals that died many millennia ago have been preserved in a state of hibernation, but also trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, and viruses, which today raise many questions and concerns among modern humans. These microbes, living deep within the cold earth, have never encountered the human immune system before because it has never faced them. Recently, due to global warming, this massive icy reserve has begun to slowly melt, releasing ancient secrets and dangers hidden within the permafrost. In 2014, a group of scientists from France and Russia conducted an experiment that shook the entire scientific community with its boldness and unexpected consequences. They collected samples of ancient permafrost, dating back up to 30,000 years, from the region of the Kolyma River, one of the coldest and most desolate corners of Siberia. These ice samples were placed in specially prepared nutrient media containing microorganisms, amoebas, and suddenly, something astonishing happened. A virus sealed in eternal ice came to life. This giant virus, which scientists named Pithovirus sibericum, began infecting the amoebas, its living hosts, and rapidly spreading, killing them as if 30,000 years had not passed since the virus was encased in ice. This case demonstrated that even after such a long time, these ancient microorganisms remain infectious and alive. Fortunately, this virus was completely harmless to humans. It posed no threat to health. However, despite that, it became the first alarm signal. Later, in samples nearly 50,000 years old, scientists discovered 13 more ancient viruses, including Pandora viruses and megaviruses, all of which retained their ability to infect and kill. These findings prompted experts to consider, along with the melting remains of mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, and other ancient animals from the permafrost, ancient pathogens responsible for mass epidemics among our ancestors, Neanderthals or Denisovans, could also be released. And this is not science fiction, but a very real threat. In 2016, on the Yamal Peninsula, a sudden outbreak of anthrax occurred, claiming the lives of over 2,000 reindeer and one child. The source of infection was a carcass of a reindeer that had died from the disease more than 75 years earlier, which thawed out due to unusual heat. The bacteria spores hidden inside a dead animal's body remained dormant for a long time, waiting for suitable conditions to awaken and begin their destructive work again. These microbes had been preserved in ice all this time, showing no signs of life, and only reactivated when the ice melted. What other prehistoric diseases, such as ancient smallpox, the plague, or perhaps something entirely unknown to us, are lurking in Siberian ice and waiting for their moment? The release of these zombie viruses and bacteria is one of the most serious and unpredictable threats of the 21st century, capable of leading to new large-scale epidemics and disasters. In 2008, in the Denisova cave in the Altai Mountains, Russian archaeologists discovered a tiny, seemingly insignificant fragment of bone, the last phalanx of a little girl's pinky finger who lived in these lands about 50,000 years ago. This find appeared trivial, and scientists paid little attention to it, sending it to the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, where the brilliant Swedish geneticist Svante Pääbo and his team worked on decoding ancient DNA. Suddenly, unexpectedly for everyone, a true breakthrough began. From Siberia to tropical islands, an immense chain of lands and peoples stretched out, each point holding its own unique secrets and mysteries. Among the many discoveries related to ancient human history and evolution, a special place is occupied by the genetic material found in modern Tibetans. This gene essentially is the legacy of our ancestors, helping people living high in the mountains survive in conditions of extreme thinness of the air and harsh climate. Thanks to these genes, Tibetans are able to maintain health and vitality for a long time in conditions that seem impossible for most. It is interesting to note that from a tiny bone found in one of the Siberian caves, an entire chapter in human evolution was born. This small find became a key to unlocking mysteries about long-extinct humans, whose remains still raise many questions among scientists today. Although we almost do not know what Denisovans look like, their existence is an indisputable fact. Aside from a few fragments, one phalanx, several teeth, and a jaw fragment found in Tibet, we have practically no other evidence. Nevertheless, we can confidently say that these ancient people existed and that their blood still flows in the veins of millions of people around the world. In 1993, on the high-altitude Uyak Plateau, located at the border of Russia, China, Mongolia, and Kazakhstan, an expedition of archaeologists from Novosibirsk, led by Natalia Palismak, made a discovery that caused not only scientific debate, but also led to a real mystical war. In one of the frozen kurgans of the Pazyryk culture, scientists discovered a burial chamber carved out of larchwood, which was completely filled with ice during the winter. When the ice was carefully melted, they uncovered an untouched burial. It was the grave of a noble young woman who lived approximately 2,500 years ago. Next to her, 6 saddled and bridled horses were laid to rest, a symbol of her high status and wealth. The woman was dressed in a silk shirt, likely imported from India, as well as a long woolen skirt, indicating her belonging to a wealthy and advanced culture. But this did not impress the scientists as much as one might expect. The shock came not from her clothing, but from what was found on her body. Her entire body was covered with intricate blue tattoos. Especially striking was the image on her left shoulder, a fantastical deer with a griffin's beak and Capricorn's horns. This depiction was executed in the style of Siberian animal ornaments and was considered a true masterpiece of ancient Scythian art. This discovery proved that tattoos in ancient times served not only a decorative purpose, they held deep sacred meaning and functioned as a kind of passport into the spiritual world. At that moment, it seemed that tattoos were not just adornments, but important symbols reflecting a person's connection to higher realms and spiritual forces. However, as soon as the mummy was removed from the icy tomb and sent to Novosibirsk for further research, misfortunes began in the region. The strongest earthquakes in the last 100 years occurred, followed by floods, hailstorms, and even prolonged economic crises. Local residents, especially the indigenous Altai people, believed that all this was a sign of the wrath of spirits. For them, the Ukok Plateau is a sacred land where Akkadian, the White Lady, guardian of Altai and keeper of the gates to the underworld, resides. They insisted that the scientists disturb the peace of this ancient goddess, and for that, she was punishing people with misfortunes and natural disasters. For nearly 20 years, shamans and elders demanded the mummy be returned to its native place. In 2012, these black, centuries-old fragments had little attention from researchers and passers-by for a long time. They lay in the ground, in the shadow of time, of little interest to those who did not know their true value. However, everything changed in the early 20th century when a museum custodian named Dmitry Lobanov decided to pay attention to these mysterious ancient remains. He carefully assembled them into a single composition, creating from the scattered fragments a figure more than 5 meters tall. Thus, the Shigar idol was born, which later became considered the oldest monumental wooden sculpture ever created by humans on Earth. This find shocked scientists and historians, as it bore the imprint of an era that stretched back thousands of years. When in the 1990s, experts first conducted radiocarbon analysis, they were utterly amazed. They couldn't believe their eyes. The age of this idol was 9,500 years. This meant it was created during the Mesolithic era, when humans were just beginning to explore new ways of life, hunting, gathering, and producing their earliest works of art. However, this was only the beginning, because subsequent research carried out in the 20th century by German scientists using more advanced methods revealed an astonishing result. The idol's age reached 11,600 years. This indicated that it was carved from a solid trunk of an ancient larch tree, approximately 150 years old, meaning the tree from which it was made grew during a time when glaciers still covered the earth. It was created by humans, hunters and gatherers, who possessed an incredible level of abstract thinking and a complex system of beliefs. They were capable of creating artworks that rivaled later agricultural civilizations in artistic expression and complexity. But the most mysterious aspect of this find was not its age at all. The entire surface of the idol is decorated with carved geometric patterns and images of faces or masks. These ornaments are believed by scientists not merely as decorative elements, but as a coded message, an ancient script narrating the creation of the world and humanity's place within it. The surface features at least 8 figures arranged in a strict hierarchy. At the top is the main three-dimensional figure, and beneath it, on flat images, are 7 more figures. What do these images mean? What secrets are hidden behind these patterns? Some scientists suggest they depict water, air, earth, plants, and animal spirits. Others believe they portray the origin story of the tribe, while a third group sees them as a map of the universe divided into 3 levels: the upper, celestial; the middle, earthly; and the lower, underground. These encoded messages are likely among the oldest evidence of human understanding of the surrounding world. They have survived for 11,000 years, preserved as mysterious patterns and figures. However, the language in which this message was written has been lost forever, and now we can only guess at its meaning. All of this brings us back to the beginning, to the giant bleeding scar on the body of Siberia, to the Batagai Depression, which the local inhabitants rightly call the road to the underworld. Today, knowing the dangers and secrets hidden within Siberia's permafrost, we are beginning to perceive anew the scale and ominous properties of this natural phenomenon. It is not merely a geological anomaly, but a majestic and frightening phenomenon, the largest permafrost fissure in the world, exposing a layer of ancient times. One could say it is a true functioning time machine, running backward. It all began back in the 1960s, when people started clearing sections of taiga. Deprived of their dense, shady canopy from ancient, long-forgotten times, from the depths of the earth, like from a deep and mysterious book, old mammoth tusks, enormous skulls of ancient bison, and bones of woolly rhinoceroses protrude from the walls of the Batagai. These remnants of the past create the impression that nature itself has decided to leave us its memories, preserving them in stone hardness for centuries. In the 20th century, in the distant year 2018, a unique treasure was discovered here, in this mysterious place. A perfectly preserved mummy of an ancient horse, approximately 42,000 years old. Remarkably, its vessels still contain liquid blood, as if time had stopped, and this ancient creature could serve as a living witness to an era when glaciers covered vast parts of our planet. Such a find opens incredible opportunities for scientists, the chance to clone extinct species and create a real park where the Ice Age could be recreated to better understand its secrets. However, despite these prospects, there is another side to the story. The walls of the Batagai, like pages of an ancient book, hold not only memories of long-gone eras, but also vital information about the climate of our planet over the past 650,000 years. These layers of stone and ice tell us that current global warming is a unique phenomenon, with no parallels in such a long historical period. Yet there is a darker side to this story, an undercurrent that is not fully acknowledged. Cracks and fissures, like those in the Batagai, along with thousands of other similar sites across Siberia, release millions of tons of greenhouse gases, such as methane and carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere. These gases had been securely trapped beneath layers of ice for millions of years, and only now, under the influence of warming, are beginning to be released. Methane, a gas dozens of times more potent than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse agent, accelerates global warming. As more of these gases are emitted, the permafrost melts faster, and this melting, in turn, triggers even more gas releases, creating a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. This is a real climate bomb, a mechanism already in motion, growing more intense with each passing year. But the dangers do not end there. Along with ancient gases, Microorganisms that had been in a dormant state under the ice for millions of years are also released into the atmosphere. These microscopic creatures, sometimes called zombie viruses, could be very dangerous, as their awakening might lead to unpredictable consequences. That is why local residents living near this mysterious and hazardous place harbor superstitious fears. Their horror is based not only on ancient beliefs, but also on scientific facts. This zone is truly an open wound on the body of our planet, revealing to us pages of its distant past while simultaneously hinting anxiously at a possible future. Each year, this wound widens, exposing new secrets and bringing to the surface forces that perhaps it would be better never to learn about. Batagai has become a symbol of our time, a place where the past and future collide, where human negligence and natural forces combine into a powerful yet dangerous cocktail. The further we go, the clearer it becomes. This wound on the Earth's crust shows us not only history, but also warns us that we must be very careful not to awaken forces that could spiral out of control. We thank everyone who watched this story until the end. Your support is important to us, because only together can we understand and make sense of what is happening. Let each of you remember, the future of this planet is in our hands, and it depends on our decisions what it will be.